Hello guys and welcome back to the second part of the Python beginners project Tic Tac 2 game. In a previous video, we've created the init function which would print a welcome message and show which boxes have which numbers. Then we've added the board is full function to check if is board full. Then we created the computer's turn function, and here we added three other functions which would be show the board function, check if anyone won, and player's turn function. We created show the board function, but the other two functions is left for this video. So in this video we are gonna create these two other functions. Now let's create check if anyone won function. So before we move on, let me explain what this function is gonna do. In this game, for a player, there are 8 different ways to win. So if a player took all items at 3, 2, 1, or this row, or one of these columns, or if the player took 1, 5, 9, or 3, 5, 7, so that player will win the game. For that reason, I've created a variable. So I have it here in my snippet code. So I can just copy and paste it here. Here in this variable, I have all win cases. So if I take this one as example, if one of the players took 1, 4, and 7, which will be this column, so that player will win the game. Or if I take the first one as example, if one of the players took 0, 1, and 3, which will be this one and this one and this one, so that player will win the game. Okay, now we gonna loop through all cases in this variable and check if one of the players took all the items at one of these cases. So for a case in a win cases, I just want to highlight again that our board is a list, therefore these numbers are from 0 to 8. So these numbers are just indexes for one of the items in our board. Now I'm going to create 3 variables, and each variable will store one of these numbers from this case. So the first variable will be called index 0, and it will store the item at index 0 from the case. And the second one is index 1, and as you can guess, it is the item at index 1 from the case. And the last one is index 2, and it is the item at index 2. Now we're gonna check if the items at this index in our board are the same. So if I take this case as example, the index 0 here will be 2, the index 1 will be 5, and the index 2 will be 8. Then we're going to check if the item at the index 0, which was 2, so it will be the item at index 2 in our board, is equal the item at index 1, which was 5, so it will be the item at index 5 in our board. And also, if the item at index 2 so this index 0 was 2, is equal the item at index 8, so the index 2 here was 8, and if it is, it means all these 3 items are the same. And it is because if the item at index 2 and 5 are the same, and also if the item at index 2 and 8 are the same, it means items at index 5 and 8 are the same. Therefore, they 3 are the same. Then we're gonna check if the we just need to check one of these items. So I will take this one, is not equal space, so if they are not empty. Now all we need to do is to determine who is the winner. And we can do it by checking if that item is equal capital X. So the capital X was for computer, as you saw before. So it means the player lost the game. So I'm gonna print you lost. Or if it is equal capital O, so capital O will be for player. So I can just copy this print statement and replace the lost with the won. So it means the player won the game. And then we're gonna exit from the program. Okay, so check if n11 function is done. Now we can create player's turn function, so player will be able to play the game. So I'm gonna copy the player's turn function's name and create it after computer's turn function. And as we did in a computer's turn function, first we're gonna check if board is not full. And if it is full, I can copy the same code from the computer's turn function and paste it here. So if board is full, we want to print nobody won and exit from the program. And here, if the board is not full, I create a while loop. Then I create a variable and I will call it the player's choose. And I will assign it to input. So we are gonna take input from the user. Now it is your turn. Then I will create another function which is called is valid, and I will assign it to a function which is called check if input is valid, and I will pass player's choose as argument to this function. So we don't have this function yet, but we are going to create it after player's turn function. This function will return true if the user's input is valid, otherwise it will return false. So I can check if the input is valid. Then I'm gonna check if the item at index integer players choose. So we convert players choose to the integer. -1 is equal space. So we are checking if the item at this index is empty. Then we want to assign that item to the capital O. And then, as we did in a computer's turn function, I'm gonna call these two functions. And then I'm gonna break from the while loop. But what if this item at this index is not empty? So I'm gonna add the else statement and print this place is already filled. Okay, so after while loop, I'm gonna call computer's turn function, so it is a computer's turn. Okay, so now the player's turn function is also done, and we have just one more function to create, and it is called check if input is valid. And after that, our program is ready to run. So let's create check if input is valid function. I'm gonna copy the name and create it after player's turn function. It takes argument, so I will call it player's input. Then I'm gonna create a try except block, and in a try block I will create a variable which is called to integer players input. Then I assign it to int players input. So we are trying to convert players input to the integer. And if we failed, so for example, if player's input is a character instead of number, then it will raise a error which is called value error. So we want to print invalid input. If we didn't get any error, there is just one more thing to check, and it is to look if the player's input is from 1 to 9. And the reason for that is because here we showed that the input should be from 1 to 9. Okay, so let's check it. If player's input is greater and equal 1, and the player's input is less and equal 9, then we want to return true. So if we passed all these checking, it means that the player's input is valid. Otherwise, if for example the input is less than 1 or it is greater than 9, so we want to print the number should be from 1 to 9. And here, after try except block, we want to return false. Why we return false after try except block is because, for example, here when we are trying to convert players input to the integer, if we failed, it will come to this except line and print invalid input, but it will not return anything. Or here when we are checking if the input is from 1 to the 9, if it is not, it will come to this else statement and print this string, but it will not return anything if we didn't add this return false. But here in a player's turn function, we are expecting that this function return true or false, and this is the reason for this return false. Okay, finally we are done with this project, and now all we have to do is to test it. So I'm gonna open command prompt in the same folder, and then I'm gonna run the Python file. Yeah, it sounds like the program worked without any problem. Okay guys, that was all for this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. And if you had any questions, you can comment in the section below. So see you next time.